Hi, and welcome to Season 2 of Big Sound Small Town, the podcast that spotlights the talented and diverse musicians in small towns and communities. This season we're branching out to include the community of people who make it possible for musicians to be able to perform their music, the producers, the recording engineers, the venue owners, and many others, and as always, the small town musicians. Remember, small town doesn't mean small talent. Hear their stories. Eric and I recorded this episode at his old location, Shiny New Tattoo on Dixon Boulevard. Since then, he has moved his location to 217 North Lafayette Street in Shelby, North Carolina. And the whole episode has what sounds like a click track running in the background. And for a while, that's what we thought it was. But I knew a click track wasn't going, so it turns out that it was his neon sign flashing in the window, which I thought we should record a new episode with it. But Eric is a very busy guy, and he's changed his location and working on big things. So it hasn't ever happened, but it is a really cool piece of trivia running through the background there. At some point, someone may like to know that. Again, it's a good episode. It just has a click track or a neon light flashing, whichever you choose to think of it as. Enjoy Eric's episode. Today on Big Sound Small Town, I welcome musician, artist, entrepreneur, and bass player Eric Metcalf to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
sun.
Today we're in Eric's shop, Shiny New Tattoo, and we're talking music. Tell me about your musical path. Where did it begin?
It started at my house in Asheville, at my parents' house, buying, I think, maybe my first Judas Priest album on vinyl from Record Survival on Merriman Avenue back then. Long since gone, as is most of the vinyl. I was hooked. I used to, my parents would always have me, we'd go to pizza, and I'd go straight for the jukebox when I was little and just always wanted to, first just wanted to dance and scream and listen to it. And then later on, I guess probably about 14 or so, I had some friends that were, it was the hair metal years. This was, early 80s. And, I had some friends that introduced me to Ozzy and Sabbath and Zeppelin and a few that were actually, hey, I just bought this guitar, check it out.
Is that where you started, is with guitar?
I saved up, doing chores around the neighborhood and found a guy online, actually in the Iwana back then, that would sell me this old beat-up harmony guitar.
Yeah.
And I went and had my mom drive me out there, bought this guitar, and had it for a short time, and realized at that time all of my friends had just bought a guitar, and I wanted to be in a band, and really I had a buddy of mine, Al Edens, in Asheville, and he said, man, he goes, honestly, if you want to play in a band, he said, your best shot may be bass. He said, everybody's playing guitar, and how many guitarists?
That's true. Yeah, that's always kind of been the case.
That's it. And I had a buddy of mine, Mark Romine, that was playing bass, and had seen his and picked his up and thought this is kind of cool. So I sold the other guitar and went out and bought an old Aria Pro bass, a P-bass copy, which was fantastic bass, really. And the journey began at that point. Really, I started.
So basically, your whole band experience started as a bass player.
It did. I went and I did a few lessons. I went to a musician's workshop in Asheville, also on Maryland. And there was a guy there, phenomenal bass player. I'm not fit to tie his shoes, but Elliot Wadopian. And he actually plays with the symphony there. And I took a few, maybe a couple of months lessons just to familiarize myself with it. And then, like a lot of kids said, oh, the hell with this, and I went and started playing in bands. And that was it for the lessons for a long time.
What did you use pick the record up and drop it to learn your parts? That's
exactly what I did. Go back and forth, and then we had an 8-track player.
Oh yeah.
We ordered the little attachment where you could put cassettes in it.
Right.
And I would put the cassettes in it, and it had a fast forward but no rewind. So then I'd have to flip it over, go back, then flip it back again, and listen to the part again. So it wasn't the process that it is nowadays, where you can go on your computer and isolate this part,
or go on YouTube
put it on
and
a
have
loop,
show you
the part. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I relied, and always have relied on here. You don't want me in your band if you need somebody to read music, because it's what's the old thing they say, if a guy says he can kind of read music, he can't read music. That's me. I can kind of read music. So
yeah.
But I started playing with that, got in a band. A couple of buddies in high school that I was with, Toby Bryant, that I played in bands with for years actually, and a buddy of mine, Trent Van Dyke, and we started they actually had already started going, and there was a friend of ours, Brad Ayers, on the other side of town, who was that local phenom. He was just unbelievable. And Toby said, hey, come play with bass with us, and that was pretty much how it started. I got my first band then, and there was a band at the time then called the Strip Band that Al Edens, I mentioned earlier, was in. And we'd played a few team parties and things like that, and I think I was all of 16 years old, and I played my first club gig at Sneakers.
Oh,
do you remember that place in Hendersonville?
Yes, I do.
We opened up for the Strip then, and once you play live like that, you're hooked.
Yeah,
So I thought it was the greatest thing ever, and just the guys, the camaraderie. I think just everything about it appealed to me, and we looked up to them. They were all a few years older than us, and we're like, oh, we want to be these guys,
So you went the metal route.
Absolutely. I played, we were playing, this was around the time of Guns N' Roses being, so big, and, we played, we had quite a few, we had a little original tape out. We won a Battle of the Bands, the old Dreamland Drive-In. I don't know if you remember that.
I did know that, yeah.
We played there, and we won a Battle of the Bands, and we won some recording time. So we went and we did this, I think there were 4 songs on this old demo that we did. Played and started playing, gigs all around at that point.
So you got in the recording studio early in your life.
Yeah, I was probably 16 to 17, maybe 17 years old.
Nothing like the studio experience.
Oh, I hated it at first. I loved going in, and you felt, instantly felt like your street cred went up when you walked through the door.
Does, kind of.
But it was, I was, I'm kind of punk rock bass player kind of mentality, I guess. So it was a slow go for me. I ended up liking it by the end of it. We recorded a few times over the years and liked it. But it was definitely a new experience to see that side of it. And, instead of just a bunch of kids jumping around on stage when you're young, to actually go in and try to create something.
Was your goal to make a living at playing music?
It was. I think like a lot of kids, especially at that age. Reality hadn't quite set in, about just how difficult this could be. I was sure that, we were going to be the next, Bon Jovi or Motley Crue
you
or something.
had a good bit of success at it.
We did. Years later, that band, a couple, the drummer, the guitarist, Brad, a friend of mine, David Ferracino, was the drummer, then Brad Ayers, the guitarist, they moved to L.A. and went to MIT at that time to continue their musical education. And so, of course, the band at that point, kind of fell apart. And Brad, at that point, was really kind of the star. He was unbelievable talent. So it was, I played in a couple of little bands around town with nominal success. Right. And funny thing, as it would be, the Toby from the original band was going to Brevard College. And this was, alternative was coming about. It was the REMs and the Chili Peppers that were becoming the Hoodoo Gurus, bands like that. And he called me up and said, "Hey, I've got a great drummer here. I've got a great singer, and we're trying to do something." They were parting ways with their bass player, who was actually, I think, a terrific bass player also. Didn't work out for whatever reason, but really good guy also. And they said, "Come down and let's audition." And next thing you know, I'm packing my bags and we moved to Charlotte. They were getting out of school. We always wanted to do something, so we went to Charlotte and started, recording and playing clubs like 1313 back then, and gosh, I can't even think of it. It was the Milestone. We played at a lot.
Does this lead to a scene in a movie?
It does. It does eventually. We started playing. We played with some pretty big bands. We played with Blind Melon. We played with White Zombie. We had some local guys around. That ended up getting really big. Hootie. We played with some of those guys. But we played at I can't tell you the exact details. Sean would probably be better on it. But we played at the Mad Monk, and the owner of the Mad Monk was trying to help us out with some stuff too. And he had talked back and forth to Carol Co Studios and to Brandon Lee. And Brandon liked us. At the time, they were filming The Crow at Carol Co. And they got in touch with us, went back and forth, and then we, of course, in the movie, he's, a singer in a band. That's like singer/guitarist. He dies, and so does his girlfriend. They're murdered, and he comes back to avenge everything. Well, we played his band in the movie. So we went from Charlie's on Acid, which is what the band was called then, to in the movie we were called Hangman's Joke. And so we still see, it's kind of funny, you can look at the movie now and no speaking parts, but you'd see stills of us. Do we
get residuals from this?
No.
Too bad.
I got a great picture of myself with Brandon Lee that I have lost, and some good. We got it. We were in. Unfortunately, when he passed away, that's when we probably saw us the most. There was an Entertainment Weekly called Blood on the Set, and they had him on the cover. And when you opened up the first page, there was a 2-page pull-out they had him on top of a car, and us as the band, we were in the car looking, and we got a lot of little things like that.
Did that jump your career? I mean, did you get better jobs, more jobs?
It was really kind of I don't know. Sometimes I look at it maybe as a blessing and a curse. It was kind of a I think you'd get some resentment from some people.
Sure.
You'd get these guys think there's something when
Well,
really
music is a jealousy oriented.
There's a lot of politics.
Yes, there is
There's a lot of politics
yes,
in
there
music.
is.
We had some things like that. We had, it seemed like we were getting pretty good label interest at the time. We were playing some showcases. We played a showcase in New Orleans. We were, and then the bottom fell out. It's like the same story. I think, but it seemed like we were rolling along. You really felt like we were on the cusp of something. Like it was imminent that okay, we're at least, whether we make it big or not, that's all. But we're going to get signed, and this, and you know how that goes.
So is this when we make a transition to a different art form?
It is. We, the band, we're still friends today. We still play shows on occasion. Once every few years we'll get together. But I was, I lived in the back of a van with 3 other guys. I was tired of smelling like beer and cigarettes.
Yeah, exactly.
And having a hard time keeping a job. Every time you had a great gig come up, there goes your job. And we had a lot of that for years. It's definitely not as glamorous as what I think some people believe. It's a rough way to live.
It is. You have to do it when you're young. You couldn't do it at a later age. No one can.
Absolutely, I wouldn't want to. I
agree.
That ship has sailed for me, but I still love getting together and playing once in a while. I'd moved back to Asheville from Charlotte, and I had an old friend that had tattooed me when I was younger, and he knew that I drew, and he basically said, give it a shot here, and I talked to him. We went back and forth, and he and his wife is a great friend of mine too. Decided, let's give this guy a shot up here, and I did an apprenticeship there for a year, and then worked in another shop. Moved.
You were an artist before you got into the tattoo.
Yeah, my mom's an artist. It's her fault. So if she ever complains about the tattooing, she knows it's coming right back at her. But she would drag me to, she would do toll painting classes and different things, and she would paint like someone's family, their saw. They would do this big saw.
Right.
So she was always good at that, and you'd go to these things, and I'd start painting with her, and that's probably where I got my first inkling or love for art, and it just, I think tattooing has always had this. You got bands, Rose Tattoo.
Yeah.
It's always had this. For some reason with rock and roll, they just go hand in hand.
They do.
And it just seemed like a natural
transition. Yeah.
It did. It really did.
That's good. That's it does. I mean, well, as far as that goes, I guess you have tattooed a lot of musicians over the years.
I've tattooed quite a few. We used to live when we were in Charlotte. I didn't mention the part where I was a little punk rock kid tattooing out of my house when I was young.
Okay.
But that happens too. We lived.
It's part of the rock and roll experience.
Oh yeah, we lived on Sunnyside Drive in Charlotte, which was right down the street from Anti-Scene. Lived around the corner.
Yeah.
Buzz Oven was about 2 blocks down. So we hung out with a lot of those bands. I remember tattooing Ashley from Buzz Oven, in our living room when I was a kid.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And so it was neat, and that culture was just such a big thing. Everybody was getting tattooed, and it was kind of the rise of the tattoo shop. At that time you had a few established tattoo shops in every town, but it was minimal. Now you look on every block there's a tattoo shop anymore. But it was really kind of more of an underground thing at that time.
So what led you to Cleveland County?
Poor life decisions. No, I'm just kidding.
That's why about half of us are here.
I was tattooing. My wife is a professor, and at the time we were trying to get her work really. So we moved. We were living in Gastonia. We just felt there were more colleges around, something to do for her, and and I could tattoo anywhere. And I worked in a shop there for a while that no longer exists, actually. But I wanted to do my own thing. I wanted to be able to, you know, a lot of, not all shops, but some shops, it's, you know, you get them in, get them out. I wanted something where I could take my time, and I'm lazy by heart as well, so I like to take my time and do things how I want it. And it just seemed, you know, Shelby was kind of in between, you know, Asheville, which I still always kind of consider, that's my heart, you know. And, you know, Lori got a job in Gastonia, and we just thought, well, this is logical. And at the time, there weren't many shops here. It was a good place, and really bumping into Luke and Amanda. You know, when I saw them, and I thought, I know this guy, and we started talking a little bit when they had the cafe uptown.
Oh yeah.
And you know, he was really instrumental. He used to put up flyers for me when I first opened up, and I just like the community. You know, there's like any town, there's some negatives here, but the people and the musicians in this town, I mean, really in particular, are fabulous. I mean, and I think people would be very surprised, the musicians that you're bumping into on the street and what they've accomplished, yourself included.
Yeah.
But I mean, there really are. It's a little bit of a wellspring for, you know, a small town like this. You just wouldn't expect the caliber of musicians around here.
And that's kind of the basis of this program, is that there is many musicians here, quality musicians, diverse musicians.
Absolutely.
So,
I've been humbled at every turn around here when I meet somebody and tell them, oh, I play, and then you see the guy play, and you're like, oh, and then you're like, I kind of play a little bit.
yeah.
You know, there's some fantastic
it's
guys.
Like, probably everybody that I know that's dabbled with a banjo won't admit it in this town unless they can really play. And by
It's
really
true.
play, we're talking better than most people in the world.
This town is a mecca for banjo
It
and
is.
bluegrass players
It
in
is.
general.
It
There are
really
guys
is.
that
There.
just will blow your mind.
There are. But, okay, now, you've also moved on to other, I mean, you have your own shop.
Got the shop here. We stay, you know, pretty busy. We stay booked out usually for a good time.
So the business is not backing off.
Business is not backing off. We've done really well. We've been able to do some really fun tattoos over the years, and this place has been great. It's similar to music. It's almost like a little speakeasy when you go into a tattoo studio.
Really? Yes, it is.
You're stuck with the guy for a few hours,
Yeah.
and you learn so much about each other. It's one of the things that I love about this business. That's why we're friends.
Right, it is.
I love that you get so many different people from so many different walks of life. And at the end of the day, I've had people that I could tell couldn't stand me when they walked through the door. They were here simply because of the business training. They wanted a tattoo and they wanted out the door. And by the time it's over, I mean, you're laughing. We've hugged each other. I've cried with people before.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I love that kind of.
People have cried with you before, too.
Absolutely.
It hurts.
Oh, yeah. I've had a few that have cried the whole time. Absolutely, it does. But I love that. I like the sense of community. That's one thing about Shelby. It's like every town. It's love, hate. You go back and forth, but boy, there's a lot more love than hate.
Now, I guess your clientele has changed over the years too, hasn't it?
Absolutely. It was rougher when I was younger. You would get, it was a lot of, the punk rock thing. You get a lot of musicians. You'd get, it was big for bikers.
When I got my first one, it was.
Everybody was a biker.
It was a biker. Yes, it was a biker shop.
When I first
a little
started
scary,
tattooing,
I will tell you.
Oh yeah, my first, and I kind of skipped over a little bit. There was a man, Charlie Gibson, when I was young, that I started to do my first apprenticeship. This was when I was probably 18, I was probably 19, 20 years old, and ended up moving to join the band. But there was a chance where it could have gone the other way
Right.
then. My first tattoo that I ever did was at a biker rally in Cherokee on a guy that I thought might kill me if I got this
You
wrong,
got it
and I
wrong.
was scared to death. But it's so different, I mean, like the clientele I'm tattooing, some of my biggest clients, I always tell people, are police officers,
Yes.
Nurses, tattoo. I've got doctors. I've got. We've tattooed
Ministers.
ministers.
I know you have. Yes, I know
Mother
you have.
Valerie has been
Yes.
in here and gotten tattooed.
Right.
Well, she's a wonderful person. person
Right,
too.
she is.
But we've had all of it's vastly
More
different.
sociable, acceptable these
Oh, yeah.
days than when we both started.
That's it. I'm saying goodbye to him, and I'm watching a soccer ball on a minivan leave.
Right.
Exactly. Rather than
And a motorcycle.
that's
And
it.
a Harley Davidson.
That's it. It's and we still we tattoo everybody. It's diverse, but it is. It's more of an accepted art form and an expressive thing, rather than it was a little bit more of a coming of age tough guy thing in some ways.
True.
At a time.
Yeah.
But now it's a drastically different. It's more about the art.
Has it changed with your equipment and stuff? Has that gotten better, or is it still the same stuff?
It has. I mean, it's basically the same. A lot of guys are still using the traditional coil machines, which is basically an electromatic. That's the one that everybody's known, or that
The buzz.
The buzz. A lot of guys, like I'm probably 50-50 on them. I use a lot of what's called the rotary machine, which is the little electric machines. They're lighter.
Less wear and tear on your
Less
hands.
wear and tear on your hands. It's more like using a Sharpie than a tattoo machine.
Are
Sometimes
the inks
It's-
better than they used to be?
The inks are much better, more consistent,
Longer lasting? possibly?
longer lasting. I think that pigments have come a long way, and the companies. I mean, it's just it used to be one of those things. A lot of guys you'd buy you'd have to create a lot of things yourself. So even when I first started, you would buy the needles, and then you would buy the needle bars that they're mounted on. You had to learn how to, as an apprenticeship, you had to learn how to solder all these needles together, the different
yeah.
configurations. Then you'd put them on the bar. Then you would have to, clean them, remove any flux. You'd have to remove baking soda. It was a long process.
Oh, good thing you were a
And then-
musician and had already known how to solder every.
That's
musical
exactly
part.
right. We've done a lot of that on the fly too.
Exactly.
But it was now all these things. You get pre-made needles made in a lab that come here that are nicer than anything we could have made back in the day, and frankly, for the same or less money, minus all the cancer inhaling fumes
Right,
that you
yes.
get, from doing all this stuff now. So
Weirdest
That's
tattoo
good.
you've ever done?
I don't know how.
Well, yeah, you've done a lot of weird ones.
Yeah, I won't go super weird on that. We've tattooed some odd places. I've tattooed, I guess, genitalia on people before.
Oh no.
That's different. You
That's
don't do
different,
that.
yeah,
That's pretty odd.
That's pretty odd.
We've done a few things like that. I've had a few kind of comical. We've had little tiny lawnmower men in interesting spaces.
That's funny.
So we've done some kind of funny things over the years.
What's the most reoccurring thing that you've done?
Gosh, over the last however many years, bird silhouettes.
Okay.
We would do a lot of.
Has that not been a traditional thing always with tattooing? Is that a-
You